Do you have a mentor? Do you have somebody that you kind of want to be like? Maybe there's somebody at your workplace that just does a really great job and you kind of want to be like them. You want to work as hard as they work or know as much as they know. Or maybe you're an athlete and maybe you play basketball and you really want to be like Michael Jordan. Or maybe you're, just looking up to somebody like that. Do you have an example? Do you have a mentor? Do you have somebody that you want to be like? Do you have anything like that with where you're at in life? Having an example to follow really helps us to navigate through life. As we're going through 1 Peter, you remember 1 Peter is written to help us go through difficult times or persecution or just some tough stuff that goes on in life. We're thinking about how to navigate successfully through this. And last week we started this new section on enduring suffering. We're thinking about submission. We're thinking about how to properly submit ourselves to other people. And last week we thought about how it's a sign of commendation to us that when we do a great job of submitting ourselves to other people who may not necessarily have our good at heart, that's commendable. God really perks up at that. He really respects that. He appreciates that. Especially when we're doing good and we still suffer. God pays attention to that. But that's really hard to do. Boy, that's tough, isn't it? I mean, is there any examples on how to deal with that in this life? Can you think of anybody that's been judged inappropriately or even sentenced to death because of something that they didn't even do? Well, there is an example for us to follow, and Peter tells us very plainly who that is, and I bet you'll never guess who it is. As we think about verses 21 through 24 in 1 Peter chapter 2, Peter's going to give us an example that we're to follow as we try to properly submit ourselves to other people. He says something like this starting in verse 21. For to this you are called, because Christ also suffered for us, leaving us an example that you should follow in his steps, who committed no sin, nor was deceit found in his mouth, who, when he was reviled, did not revile in return. When he suffered, he did not threaten, but committed himself to him who judges righteously, who himself bore our sins in his own body on the tree, that we, having died to sin, might live for righteousness, by whose stripes you were healed. So we're given this example that we're supposed to follow. Jesus is our example. You can learn a lot from Jesus. This is just one small part of what you can learn when you follow Jesus. He was ridiculed, beaten. He was judged. He was arrested, sentenced to death. For what? And what did he do in return? Even Peter himself says at the arrest in Gethsemane, let's get him. He took the ear off of one of the guys. And Jesus says, I could call down a legion of angels, but we're not doing that. When he was reviled, he did not revile in return. When you're going through some hard stuff and somebody says something particularly nasty to you, when you're reviled, do you have an example to follow on how not to revile in return? When you're suffering, don't threaten. Commit yourself to him who judges righteously. Leave whatever's happening in your life in God's hands. Trust that God is going to be able to take care of you, take care of your situation, that God's going to be able to lead you through if what you're going through is a wilderness experience. Trust that God is able to take care of you and to bring you through and to take you to the place where he wants you to be. Jesus committed himself who judges righteously. And Peter's going to tell us a little bit about who Jesus is, who himself bore our sins in his own body on the tree. Jesus didn't have to do that for you either. But Jesus willingly took your sin. He took your punishment. He took your place. He was your substitute. He took your sin in his own body on that tree. And it's by his stripes that we're healed. Can you imagine if Jesus would have flailed about just like we do and we're treated unjustly? Thankfully, we have an example to follow, an example that we can follow very well if you would just pay attention to who Jesus is and commit yourself to him.